Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
The word quality means something different in your mind than it does in my mind. And as a good project manager, if I understand that principle around language, quality, trust, any words you can think of, we call it a fat word because there's so many different meanings that it's imperative that people ask questions to make sure we are on the same wavelength. What do you mean by quality? And you continue to drill down until you feel, without being obnoxious, like you're on the same wavelength with the person you're talking to. The critical path is a wonderful thing. The critical path will light up in a Gantt chart and show you the shortest amount of time it's going to take to get those tasks done. So suddenly you have this magical strategic tool that shows you how this project needs to go and how you might need to put your best people on critical path items because they got to be done right then and there.
That's Kory Kogon. She's FranklinCovey's global practice leader for productivity and the best-selling co-author of The 5 Choices and has appeared as an expert on Today, MSNBC, and many other places. Her latest book is called Project Management for the Unofficial Project Manager. So you'll learn 1, why most projects fail, 2, key questions to ask before starting any project, and 3, the 5 behaviors of successful unofficial project managers. I'm Pete Mikaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Kory. Kory, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Pete. Great to be here.
Well, I'm excited to talk about your work, Project Management for the Unofficial Project Manager. I think a lot of people find themselves in that position of the unofficial project manager. Could you paint a picture for us for how that normally shows up at work?
Well, in today's world, we're knowledge workers. We're paid to think, to innovate, to create and execute. And when it really comes down to it, we are making things that have a beginning and an end. And as knowledge workers, we've just quietly slipped into the role of unofficial project managers without the training that official project managers would get. And people just use their talents and skills to push through when there's actually a better way.
Okay. Well, can you paint a picture for us in terms of how well is that working for us so far? In terms of the state of unofficial project management at work?
Well, the state of it is that generally 65% of projects fail, and that can include official and unofficial project managers. But more down to earth and real is that wherever I go around the world or the country and speak with groups on Zoom or in person, when you ask them why projects fail, they always give the same reasons, that there's unclear expectations, that there's no clear communication, that they don't have the right people in the right roles, that there's scope creep. It goes on and on and on to this very similar list all the time, everywhere. And again, it's because we're trying to get projects done by the seat of our pants. And it's really unfortunate because when we become scarred unofficial project managers, because we all go into these projects sort of expecting those bad outcomes. And so from a engagement point of view, where are we when it comes to projects? So that's a little bit of the landscape that we need to push through. And like I said before, there's just a better way when people become aware of just the organic nature of us being unofficial project managers.
And this 65% figure, I really wanted to dig into that because, I mean, how precisely are we defining a project has failed?
You know, it could be it was off budget or it didn't meet its scope. So again, it's a wide berth to pose that number. I don't have the empirical data for you exactly, but it's an estimate out there.
I guess what I was thinking is like, if the project is to, start a profitable business, I would expect the vast majority of them, in fact, would fail. Although if the project is to, why is this so hard to think of an example? Redesign our loan approval process is the project. That feels very much like, okay, that's within the control of an organization to do that. So you're not aware if it's like entrepreneurial, risky, market-facing factors are at play within the 65% figure, or it's pretty much no, it's just, this could have been done, but it didn't happen because of those very ordinary means by which things fall apart?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. There's all kinds of forces that affect everything. So it's a little bit of both. And those outside forces might be constants that we need to deal with. So I think there's a lot in that. There's a lot in there. I don't want to say, oh, well, if people clarified expectations, it would be 100%. It's very rare to even get to 100%. So even if we took 65 and reduced that to 40 or 30, the return on investment to anybody would be amazing. Even that entrepreneur starting a business and gets slowed down because things aren't progressing as fast, so they couldn't get the money fast enough. Or the building, think about constructing a building for a business and when it gets slowed down. So even if we dug into that number a little bit, regardless of the factors, the return on investment is pretty huge.
Okay. So then I'd love to get your perspective on, from all your research and work here, what is the top thing that makes a huge difference and yet is done so infrequently in terms of ensuring project success?
The top thing, again, not empirically, but just from our experience and what we hear a lot, is unclarified expectations. And again, you could be running the gamut of, is this a solo entrepreneur starting a business that has this project in their mind? So they're clear on their own expectations. But even then, I can see traps along the way versus a 10,000 person organization where, they're working on projects and have big key stakeholders at the executive level and everybody's pulling in a different direction. But I will say clarified expectations. So even an entrepreneur who is starting a business, if they are like, well, maybe we should do it this way, or maybe we should do it that way, and they don't come to clarity to say, okay, we've got this clarity, now let's execute, it really will step them back. So I would say that is one of the biggest ones out there around clarifying the expectations or clarifying the scope of the project, first and foremost, is probably key. I've also seen in some of the bigger organizations very painful scenarios of project managers trying to jockey politics and, this key stakeholder wants this and the other one wants that, and trying to do a project without that clarity, and it'll kill you in the end.
Well, Kory, it sounds like you got a story in mind. Please tell us a dastardly tale of unclarified expectations and what went awry.
Well, one person that I talked to, it was just really amazing. She was talking about the project that they were working on, and it was a big team of people. And, they're 4 months into spending a ton on it. And a stakeholder showed up and said, no, that's not the direction. We need to go in this direction. And that person had a lot of influence and they had to stop the whole project. And once you stop a project like that, they had people that left the organization because of that, and trying to find the money to redo all of it just brought everything to a standstill. But it was more, you sort of had to be there, the pain on this woman's face as she was telling this story of failure. And I think also it's not just that they didn't clarify expectations, it's that how it makes people feel because no matter what, even though it was an outside force, if you will, to change something, all the good work that this person and the teams had done to get there suddenly went away, and it makes you feel like you don't know what you're doing. And there's nothing worse than people feel like they don't know what they're doing. And I think that leads to shame, which is another terrible thing that people have to deal with. So the cost is not just financial, it's social, emotional, all from this idea of, can we just get clear up front on what this project is? And if we're all clear, in this new world of agility, as we go, we'll get feedback, we'll do it in a measured, modern kind of way, so we make the project better and better to apply and supply the value that it was meant to supply from the beginning.
All right. And what are some of your favorite best practices or key questions or means by which we can get outstanding clarity right from the get-go?
So the first thing is to understand you do need to ask questions. It's amazing to me, Pete, how many people will say to me, well, I'm afraid to ask questions because, they're going to think I'm stupid or something, that I don't know my job. And I'm like, I've been in executive leadership for many years. If you don't come and ask me questions, about a project that I'm involved with, you're making a big mistake, because then you're trying to read my mind, and I will come to you later and say, well, wait a minute, what about this? So best you come to me and ask questions, and don't worry that I'm going to look at you and think you're not smart. That's totally not true. So that's number one, is get that I do need to ask questions of key stakeholders. The second thing is, when you go to ask questions, is that you go with a clear outcome of the project. So it's not, hey, well, senior leadership says it's important, Kory, so I need you to tell me, what you want. I don't have time for that. But if you came to me and said, listen, from what I know so far, this is going to increase our bottom line by 10%, or it's going to engage our people in a way they haven't been engaged before, so we cut retention. Now we're talking. Now I have some concrete things that I can go on, so I will make the time to listen to your questions. And so the last thing I'll say on questions is, make sure you come prepared with a couple of really good we call this the question funnel. Open questions, meaning, so tell me, why is this, based on what we know, why is this project important to you? Detailed questions, so that when somebody says, well, it's important because senior leadership said so, that instead of like, okay, fine, knowing that's not a real answer, we can ask a detailed question of, so what does important mean to you? What does that mean to the organization? And you drill into it. And then a closed question, meaning confirm what you heard. When somebody says, well, I think we're going to put $100,000 towards the budget, don't run off and go, yay, we have $100,000. You want to confirm it and say, so you said $100,000. Are we final on that? Do we need some meeting on that? What's the next step to make sure that that's the budget? So we close it up and get confirmation. So those three, the question funnel, in addition to make sure you don't feel that it's silly asking questions, and having a good outcome so somebody pays attention to you, and then these questions, you'll be really set to clarify expectations.
I like the visual of a funnel there in terms of open at the top. It makes sense at the beginning. We can be a little more exploratory, broad, expansive, make sure we don't constrict too early. And then, yes, at the end, making sure that we've got what we need, those key bits of finality and closure. Can you share with us any particular specific questions that you have found often open up oceans of clarity when folks take the boldness to go ahead and put them forward?
Well, it depends on the situation. I don't know if there's any magic bullet. And one that I said before, knowing what we know about the project, how do you see its importance to our team, to the organization? That I think is a main question. One of the questions that I said to you before, this idea of confirmation to knock out assumptions, which are killing a lot of organizations, because everybody assumes they know what somebody else is thinking. And so just every step of the way, without being obnoxious, is that how we want to move forward? Is that how you want me to write that down? So just really making sure we have the confirmation, and any question that'll lead to a more measurable outcome. So again, in that detailed question, what will success look like for us? So I should be able to answer that, and other people should be able to answer that for you. If we're doing an event to improve customer satisfaction, how will we measure the outcomes of this? That is key to an agile project management world we live in.
Yeah, I think that's huge in terms of moving past fuzzy language to concrete language. Like, we really want to delight our customers, or we want to grow. We want this to be a big opportunity. Is okay. So is any positive incremental amount growth, and thusly we get to celebrate victory? And what did you mean by a lot? Oh, wow, your a lot is way, way bigger than my a lot assumption. And so driving that to that extra level of confirmation can really be quite eye-opening.
It can. And this whole notion of squeezing out assumptions. So I think a key principle for project management, which is a little bit out of, not left field, but I think will be of interest to everybody, is this notion that words are only the code by which I'm describing the picture in my mind. And so when somebody says, to your point, Pete, well, make sure this is done in a quality way. Okay, boss, got it. And off I go, and I do things in what I think is a quality way, and I come back and show Pete, and Pete's like, what the heck is that? That's not what I meant. But the word quality goes back to those detailed questions. The word quality means something different in your mind than it does in my mind. And as a good project manager, if I understand that principle around language, quality, trust, any words you can think of, feast, any kind of word, we call it a fat word, because there's so many different meanings that it's imperative that people ask questions to make sure we are on the same wavelength. What do you mean by quality? And you continue to drill down until you feel, without being obnoxious, but until you feel like you're on the same wavelength with the person you're talking to. That's a life lesson, not just a project management lesson, as I know from my own home.
Oh, certainly. Well, and what's funny is the word quality. It seems like, of course, we all like quality, but that could actually be pretty dangerous. Like, Kory, if you tell me you want something to be really high quality, I mean, watch out, because I'm thinking, okay, high quality means this is the best in the world in its category, or, at least top 1%. Therefore, it's probably going to take dozens or hundreds of hours to execute. It's like, oh, no. When I said quality, I don't want you to go deep into the land of obsessive, hardcore craftsmanship. I just mean it needs to not break.
Right.
Oh, okay. Quality.
Exactly.
Glad I asked.
Yeah, exactly.
All righty. Well, so that's one huge piece of failure there is unclarified expectations. And we fixed that by clarifying, asking a lot of questions, being bold, getting super clear. What is another major cause of failure and the antidote?
Well, I'll give you sort of this overarching mindset that we say that project success equals value plus people plus process. And without getting into the details, the Project Management Institute updated their standard to one that more resembles the agile world, which means, are we bringing full value to the customer, and how are we being agile along the way, to get there? So we actually updated our mindset from people plus process equals project success to value plus people plus process equals project success. So to your question, the people part and the leadership part, much failure comes because project managers, in some cases, never intended to be leaders. In some organizations, they chose a technical track or a genius track, not a leadership development track. And a lot of people just don't get it that people do the work. So am I somebody that is inspiring people to want to play on my team and will play to win? So with that, there are 5 behaviors. We said out of all the leadership stuff out there, because if you think about it, Pete, when you think about the failure list, lack of clear expectations, lack of communication, wrong people in the wrong job, scope creep, all of that stuff. And then we're saying, okay, yippee, we have this project to do. And the people that are doing it are living inside that failure list unless a leader, it's its own failure, unless the leader knows how to pull them out of that, using a good process and inspiring people to want to give their best. And so these, out of all the leadership behaviors out there, all the leadership development that people can take, we've narrowed it down and said, you know what, for now, if they just master 5 behaviors, that will go a long way to inspiring their team to want to do the work and want to win. And those behaviors are demonstrate respect, listen first, clarify expectations, extend trust, and practice accountability. And those 5 behaviors come from what we call the 13 behaviors of high trust leaders. And so just those 5. And I always say our parents taught us to do those things. And when you're under pressure, Listen, I've been in leadership for many years. I'm born and raised New York City. You probably can tell from my accent. I move fast and hard. And my default nature is just let's go get them. And under pressure, not that I don't want to respect people, but I have to be really careful because my demeanor, I live in Arizona, my demeanor can be one that's really to the point and a little gruff from time to time, and people could feel like I'm not respecting them. So when I'm under pressure of a big project, I really need to take a deep breath and think about it. Listening first also can go out of the window when you are under pressure. It's like, yeah. No, I just need you to do it the way I said so, which is, I always say it's so much easier to be a bad leader than a good one because I have to really think about being good kind of thing. So all of these clarifying expectations for the team member, not just the project, but it's not just, Pete, just do this task with blinders on. It's, Pete, let me explain. For you to do this task means that it's the piece of the puzzle that's going to make sure this all happens. Like, whoa, okay, now I get what my task is as a contribution, not just a thing to do. Extend trust. People struggle with delegation. You got to let the team members do the work. And then practice accountability. If I am not a model of accountability before I hold you accountable, and if I let you show up late 3 days in a row and the team sees that there's no accountability, everything's going to fall apart. So those 5 behaviors are key to a project manager leading a project and staying off some of the failure list.
Okay. Well, now you also mentioned you've got 5 project phases: the scope, plan, engage, track, adapt, and close. Can you walk us through those and some of the best practices there? It sounds like we got a little bit of goodness on the scope side. Any more you'd add to that?
I would. A key thing that people struggle with that they should be aware of, I mentioned, well, first of all, is how you get access to stakeholders. And I explained a little bit about that before, is you've got to have the right story to make sure people will make time for you. But then the other thing in scoping is making sure that you are able to get key stakeholders on the same page. That when they have differing opinions, are you good enough using those behaviors to, get them in a room and help negotiate getting clarity on the scope? So that's a key thing as well. And I'll also say within that first one around scoping is identifying key stakeholders. And it's interesting because we give a little thinking tool called the key stakeholder dance, which is who makes the decisions, who has the authority, who has the need. Those are all the signers. The last 2, C and E, is who has the connections and who has the energy. And those are not signers. Those are people like connections. I have people out in the field that they have so much influence in the organization that when I have somebody with negative energy or there's politics, I can call them to the table and they can help smooth things over. So a lot of times that's a big takeaway for people to really go back and revisit their key stakeholder list and say, did I forget those people? Because I usually go for just the signers and the ones we know. So that's scope. In plan, there's really 2 key things to do. One is how do I identify and get my arms around risk? So risk management. And there's going to, people are working on a lot of projects at the same time. So if we identify 10 or 12 risks, can we manage a million things? So how do we prioritize risks and just focus on the ones that are really key? And the second part of plan is the project plan. So, which is always everybody's favorite part because they just tremble at the idea of a Gantt chart. And the interesting thing is it becomes this great visual scoreboard that once you know some project management principles, you'd be amazed at how easy a Gantt chart can be and how strategic it can become to your entire project and your team. So that's a little bit about a plan. Scope and plan together make up, I'm ready to go, and now we just need to execute. So I'll pause there, see if you have any questions.
Sure thing. So with Gantt charts, for those who are not familiar, can you describe this life-changing magic and what makes it so amazing?
Yeah, and people will say, Kory, get a life. You get so excited about a Gantt chart. And we sometimes will say demystify success for the unofficial project manager because it is a demystification. So a lot of people, when we ask them, what do they use to plan a project or to track it? And most times, and we do poll after poll after poll, the answer always is, in the majority, Excel. And then some people are using some things like Monday.com. I mean, there's a bunch of things out there, Google Sheets and all that kind of stuff. And they use Excel. And it's interesting because the Gantt chart program, so think, and I don't represent them, Microsoft Project or Smartsheet on the Google side, and I have no allegiance to any of them. But essentially, they are Excel and project management principles included. So here's the big demystification, which I love, is when you understand the concept of dependencies, that one task must get done before the other task gets started, as an example, and you tie those things together. Software will allow you to tie those things together. And you learn the difference between work hours and duration. So work hours is, oh, yes, Pete, I can get that list to you, or the customer list together in 4 hours, no problem. Really? You have 7 other projects going on. Your team is busy also. Somebody's on PTO. And really, the duration is 2 or 3 days to get those 4 hours of work done. So if you input dependencies and duration in your task list, then you're going to end up with what's called the critical path, another terrifying term to so many people. The critical path is a wonderful thing. The critical path will light up in a Gantt chart and show you the shortest amount of time it's going to take to get those tasks done that must be done exactly the way you have them in order to finish the project right here. It lights up. So suddenly you have this magical strategic tool that shows you how this project needs to go and how you might need to put your best people on critical path items because they got to be done right then and there. So it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not for like brand new people training. You want to make sure that you have the right people on critical path items. And if a critical path item is in danger, it allows you to think about, okay, Mary, you know what? You're on a task that isn't so critical. Can you help Pete out? Because we really got to get this done. So it just turns an Excel spreadsheet into a magical strategic project management tool that's not as hard as everybody thinks.
Okay. And so are you saying that you'd recommend, if you're using Excel, try Project or something else, or you're saying get the magical plugins that make Excel do this for you, or either way?
I'm not that good to know if Excel has the plugins, but I would say, and we say in our courses too, we're not here to make experts of Gantt charts. And we'll say it in the book as well, give it a try. So maybe it's Microsoft Project. There's a lot of online programs out there. Give something a try, take a deep breath, learn those principles, and then see how it works for you.
And I think a cool thing to highlight in terms of those principles and the notion of the critical path is that there are some activities that we can do in parallelly. We could do some things at the same time and it's all good. Team A is working on some marketing stuff, which they could do before Team B does the engineering to make the thing actually exist. That's possible. We don't have to wait till we can actually see it and touch the thing in order to start getting some marketing things together. However, when it comes to photographing the thing, it needs to exist first in order for it to be honestly photographed. And so that is how you really start to see that differentiation between are things done in parallel or serially, and then the stack of things that are dependent on the prior things extend outward horizontally to become the critical path on a chart. And so it really is pretty eye-opening. And as you go, oh, well, we can get started on all these things right now, but we absolutely cannot start this until that's done. So we really, really, really got to make sure that this piece doesn't get delayed here.
A lot of times we just intuitively think about that as unofficial project. Oh, well, we need to do that. But we'll check with him and we'll probably get that on Tuesday. This makes it very specific. And you said it beautifully. Things can work in parallel. And these dependencies are start to finish to start to finish. So there's a few different ones in there that link them together. I always like to talk about, Thanksgiving in the United States, dinner is turkey dinner. And when you think about cooking, how all that works, you sort of intuitively know, well, I need to put the turkey in 4 hours ahead, but the potatoes need to go in 10 minutes before the turkey's ready. So it's very similar. We've been doing it intuitively, but when we get it down into a chart and let the chart help us manage, it's really amazing.
Certainly. And then you start to have some fun thinking about the resources and the true bottlenecks. And it's like, oh, well, this doesn't even need the oven at all. So easy peasy. I'll just use the microwave for that. And away we go. Okay. Well, so now let's hear about the engage.
Well, that takes us right back to the people part, because this is where if we've got scope and plan and we want to engage, this is where we need to help our people do their work and hold them accountable. So we say inspire shared accountability. And so if you think about if we've got a good, whatever you're using, it should be a visual scoreboard. Much easier in this day and age because everybody can go online and see what's what, whether you're working remote or hybrid or whatever. So really good versus having to bring a chart into a room. So everybody has visibility into my well done, whether it's a Gantt chart or however you end up doing it. And what we recommend, and we're very famous for this at FranklinCovey, is what we call a team accountability session. And it is because, and people are already rolling their eyes saying, of course, you're going to tell me to do another meeting. We work our meetings and our accountability, we like to say, from the bottom up, that this is not about the leader holding the team accountable. It's about the team wanting to play to win. So this team accountability session is maybe a once a week meeting that is not a staff meeting. It's not an operations meeting. All it is, it's like a sport, forgive me using a sports analogy, but like a sports huddle. The team gets together and everybody commits to, this is exactly what I'm doing this week to make sure this project stays on target. And the job of the leader in that meeting is to only what we call clear the path. So everybody comes to this very short 15-minute meeting. Of course, depends on how many people you've got on the team. Everybody knows where they are. And they are reporting out, hey, last week I said I was going to do this thing, got it, done, moving on. Next week, I have a million things to do, but here's the one thing I'm going to do to make sure this project stays on task. And the project manager is in the background clearing the path. You know what? I can't get through to facilities. They're not answering my calls. I can't get my thing done to get the parking set up. And so, great, my job as a leader, I'm going to call facilities so you have a clear path to be able to do that. And the meeting is over. And that is just, so it's the people are making the commitments to what they're going to do to keep that project on track, not the leader. And so it creates this engagement by the team and they high five and they go out. That's sort of the cadence of accountability that we do. Doesn't always go perfectly. Lots of times people come to the meeting, I didn't get to it. So what the leader has to really learn is how do I tell Pete, he didn't do his commitments and he just announced it in the meeting. How do I let the team know that I'm holding him accountable without embarrassing him in front of everybody else and turning the team against me at the same time? So there's a lot of learning that goes into that. And also, how do I, if somebody is chronic, where they haven't shown up for 3 weeks, how do I have a performance conversation with them to understand what's going on and set it right? So the pathway is to engage through this bottom-up team accountability. And I say bottom lovingly, meaning the people who are doing the work get to speak and make the commitments. The leader is behind them. And then how do I keep things going because something's going to give because we're not perfect.
And Kory, I'd love it for you to give us a demonstration. Indeed, let's say I show up and I didn't do the thing. How does one respond in that artful way that you described that checks all the boxes you're looking to accomplish there?
It's a great question, and I'll do it with you. So go ahead, tell me you didn't do something.
Oh yeah, sorry, no, I didn't quite finish that one up.
Thanks, Pete, for letting us know. Can you tell us a little bit about, I'm sure, we're all so busy. What happened?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's just been a whole lot going on in a lot of directions. And unfortunately, I just didn't get to that.
Okay, well, I get that. And again, I know how I can tell it's on your face too, how crazed, everybody is. We're all busy. You made that commitment last week. So is there anything that we can do to help you? Because now we have that commitment and we need your commitment for next week. So what can I do to help you to make sure that we hit our commitments by the time we come back next week?
Well, yeah, I appreciate the question. I guess it's just really tricky with my my youngest kid just isn't sleeping well. And so then the rest of us aren't sleeping well. And then, I don't know about you, when I don't get the sleep, I'm kind of dumber and slower in everything I try to do on a given day. So I don't, it's probably not practical for anyone to show up and attend to the children in my home. So yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank.
Yeah, it sounds a little frustrating. I know, everybody in this room is really nodding. Everybody has kids. Well, here's what I would suggest so we don't hold everybody up. How about you and I take this offline and then we'll figure something out. Does that sound okay?
Oh, sure thing.
Okay. If I had gone any further with you, the tension would really rise. Now, somebody might have said, well, I had these 3 other projects and I couldn't get to it. And you made the commitment. So somebody might have said, well, you know what? I couldn't get to it yesterday. I'll get to it tomorrow. And here's my commitment for next week. I'm going to keep it really light, but I can get this done to make sure and we would agree and go on. But you pushed me to the second part, which is we need to have a performance conversation offline, because had I gone any further with you, like I said, the tension was rising in the room. And it starts to become embarrassing for everybody else.
Yeah. And they don't need to hear about you and me troubleshooting of sleeping.
Exactly.
In terms of just like respectful of their time. But I really do appreciate how you made it clear. I mean, and it wasn't super ominous, like, and you're going to get a talking to by the principal. But it was just clear. It's like, okay, that's not just going to get swept under the rug. Something is going to be done to address that. And so the team gets that memo, and it's sort of like, okay, so if someone was new, it's like, oh, duly noted, not getting to it doesn't work here. Okay, message received.
Exactly. That is the key, that when you do this well and don't lose the respect of the team, like if it had gone further and we took the gloves off, that's bad, because what will happen is just group dynamics. The group will defend you more than the leader, right? Like, I can't believe she's doing that to Pete here, that kind of thing. But what does happen, like you said, I got the memo, and that's the key, is by handling it when it happens somehow. What people are sitting there doing is exactly what you said. They're like, okay, I am never, ever, ever, ever going to put myself in that position of not coming to this meeting without my commitments done, or I'm going to let Kory know beforehand so we can work it out. And that's the key. That's accountability. That's a great thing where people are thinking it up themselves instead of dropping the hammer on them like, you will do your stuff kind of thing.
Well, and I think that's powerful is that you didn't need to shout or be mean or do name calling or like frowny faces. It's like you didn't have to do any sort of a toxic behavior for it to feel plenty uncomfortable such that I wouldn't want to do that again.
Right.
And nor could I, like people love to complain about their bosses, like, nor do I think I could be like, can you believe what Kory said to me? It's like, I kind of can. Like that seems kind of like a reasonable response from a leader, even though it sucked for you. Sorry you had to go through that.
Right. And this is the hard, even when you say no frowny face, for me, some of my best friends, I'll be sitting with them and I'll get a nudge and they'll say, talk to your face. Because I could be showing my hand on my face. This whole thing around leadership, and even it's these 5 behaviors, leadership is a choice. And project management, again, we didn't choose to be people leaders, but if you're a project manager, you're leading people. And you have to talk to your face, and you have to be very measured about this and very self-aware and emotionally intelligent in dealing with people and getting things done.
All right. Thank you. Well, so Tracked, adapt, and close. We might do the quicker version of those.
We can, because if you get the first two groups done well and we're engaging, then track and adapt, we've been doing it all along. Track and adapt is really about the whole agile movement that, we did have a scope, not that we want scope creep, but are we building in feedback loops, really listening to people to make sure that we are delivering value on the project? Market forces change, things change out there. And so track and adapt as a team. Do we have the agility to be able to do that? And as a leader, am I leading my people in the right way around that? Close is always so interesting because if you talk to people, one of the things they'll say is, do you have a bunch of projects that never end? And people will laugh and say, ugh, all the time. So we got to finish them because it's easy to start them, hard to finish them. But we finish them. And the most important thing, again, remember, we want an engaged team, is to have that closing meeting. When I get that meeting notice, I roll my eyes like, ugh, the closing meeting. And then when I'm in it, I'm like, I'm glad we did it because the team gets recognized. The key stakeholders are there. And it's a place where people can share a retrospective. What went well, what didn't. People can voice their concerns. We can celebrate people. And it really sets people up to be even more engaged for the next project. So that's track and adapt and close.
Okay. Well, tell me, Kory, anything else you want to make sure to mention before we shift gears and hear about some of your favorite things?
I think what I said, this is not for the faint of heart, but it can be done. And whether you are a solo project manager, these principles are in play. Or if you're leading, a group in a large organization, the same things apply when you put your mind to it. So I think that's a final statement on that.
Kory's about to share some of her favorite things. And one of my favorite things is our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Harvard Business Review. This brilliant magazine, published at hbr.org, is the leading destination for smart management thinking. Fun fact, HBR has been mentioned in 108 episodes of the show. That's because HBR has great stuff that comes up often. They've got explainer videos, podcasts, real-world case studies, and much more. I think of HBR each night that I put on my special orange glasses. Their article, Will Blue Light Glasses Improve Your Sleep?, revealed that those who wore them reported better sleep and a 7% improvement in work performance as compared to those who wore the sham glasses. So I cite HBR anytime anyone tells me that I look silly wearing them. Now, much of HBR's content is available for free when you sign up at their site. Subscriptions that get you unlimited content cost $10 a month. If you visit hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME, you can save 10% off of that subscription. Again, to save 10% off of your HBR subscription, go to www.hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME. One sponsor to check out is Storyworth. Whenever I'm thinking about meaningful Father's Day gifts, Storyworth leaps to mind. Storyworth helps you preserve precious memories and stories from your father for years to come. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved ones a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick, such as, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? I personally love the prompt so much that I have refreshed Storyworth's questions page many times looking for more. Storyworth makes the writing process super quick and easy. All your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story, and then you get a quick copy of that. And after a year of this fun, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. Families love Storyworth so much, they've got 25,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot and have millions of stories preserved. So give all the fathers in your life a unique, heartfelt gift they'll all cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, you can save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/awesome. That's storyworth.com/awesome to save $10 on your first purchase. And big thanks to our sponsor, Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with just your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals, then automatically invests your money for you. NerdWallet.com, whom I love on these sorts of matters, gives Acorns a whopping 4.7 stars and says, quote, if you want to make the most of your spare change, there's no better place to do that than Acorns. Head to acorns.com/awesome or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. And we got a legal disclaimer here. It may not be representative of all clients. Tier 1 compensation provided. Compensation provides an incentive to positively promote Acorns. View important disclosures at acorns.com/awesome. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Please consider your objectives, risk tolerance, and Acorns' fees before investing. Acorns Advisors LLC, Acorns, is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are provided to clients of Acorns by Acorns Securities LLC, member FINRA/SIPC. For more information, visit acorns.com. Okay. Well, now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
Yes, I do have a quote. And that quote is by Dr. Stephen Covey. And it goes to everything that we've been saying. And what he said is that fast is slow and slow is fast. And I really get on board with that in so many ways as a leader, when it comes to projects, when it comes to managing home life and 30 years in a relationship. Fast is slow, slow is fast. If you go too fast on a project, you're going to pay the price at the end. If you go too fast as a leader trying to get work done and don't take care of the people, it's going to slow you down at the end. If you slow down, because I'm sure people on this call, Pete, also were going, hey, I don't have time to scope and I don't have time to go find other key stakeholders and all of that. But we call it front loading. And so if you slow down to do the work up front, it'll speed things up in the end. So that's my favorite quote.
Beautiful. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
I'm a fan of Dr. David Rock, who is the founder of the Neural Leadership Institute for many years. And I was lucky enough to be able to get a certificate of Neural Leadership Foundations. So I love following his work because it's very obviously research-based and has everything to do with how the brain works. And in this world of knowledge work, we have to optimize our brain.
All right. And a favorite tool?
A favorite tool, I think, it's interesting. Here's my old schoolness, tables in Word.
Oh, yeah.
That is helpful to me because I write so much. And it's always interesting when I see people write text in Excel, but a table for me is really good. And Notion now is a favorite tool of mine as well.
Okay. And a favorite book?
Favorite book is actually Quiet by Susan Cain, because I am a raging introvert.
Okay. And a favorite habit?
My favorite habit is walking. I like to walk. Again, going back to the brain, that I work really hard, like so many people do, and continuously. And that is not a good thing. Even in the day-to-day, you need to take breaks. And that break will increase your productivity by a certain amount. So when I take a break, I like to go out and walk. And on the weekends, I live in the desert. So it's a great habit to help me think. And a lot of times I'll come in my office, look at my computer, read something, and then go take a walk to let it synthesize.
Okay. And if folks want to learn more, get in touch, where would you point them?
You can get the updated version of Project Management for the Unofficial Project Manager at any of the booksellers, Amazon, etc. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can go to www.franklincovey.com to see this and all of the other things that we have up there around people development.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Remember that it's about the people, number one, if you're a leader, and number two, regardless of your role, that you have every opportunity to work in your circle of influence if you let go of some of the things that you can't do anything about. It's a tough time in the world right now and in the workplace. And so if you just really take a deep breath, count to 10, and focus on things that you have control over, you'll find that it's easier to get through the day-to-day with a pretty good contribution at the end.
Awesome. Well, Kory, thank you. I wish you much luck in all your projects.
Well, thank you. And thanks for taking the time with me today, Pete.
I really appreciate Kory's terminology, fat word, a word that can be interpreted many different ways by many different people. And I really think about words like, what does soon mean? What does a lot mean? It can save you a whole lot of aggravation if you start to get into the habit of repeatedly clarifying. What do we mean by soon? What do we mean by a lot? Instead of assuming, I'm actually astounded at my own ability to make assumptions and create explanatory rationales and stories for why, of course, my assumption must be true. They said they'd get it to me soon, or they'd ship it to me soon. Well, that certainly must mean less than 2 days, because that's what Amazon does. And one could not in good conscience say they're going to deliver an item soon if it's going to be more than 2 days. Could they? given the global expectation that we now have from Amazon Prime deliveries. You get the idea. So I can just have this sense of conviction or certainty about what soon means that is completely unfounded. And the way we really get the conviction and certainty is by asking, what do you mean by soon? Oh, okay. Glad I asked, because I was operating from a completely different vantage point. Powerful stuff from Kory. You can get a summary write-up of the actionable wisdom from this episode by signing up for the Gold Nuggets at awesomeatyourjob.com, which also unlocks the vault, the archive of all 946 of these summaries. And you can see the particular transcripted show notes for this episode over at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP946. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.